Hi, and welcome to Let's Bake and Cook Stuff. Today I am making a vegetable pot pie, just like a chicken pot pie or any other kind of pot pie that you've ever had, but this one is just vegetables and, you know, a couple other things. Right now I'm making the crust. It's a cornmeal crust. Well, I mean, it has flour in it too, but it's a cornmeal crust. I'm cutting the butter up in cubes. This butter's been in the freezer for about half an hour, so it's nice and cold. I'm gonna put some of that in the bottom. And you want to cut, that was a half a stick. We're doing a stick and a half of butter. And I want the stick cut in about 16 pieces. So they're going to end up being about a half a tablespoon each. Okay. All right. And then we're going to put in some 2 1/4 cups of flour and 1/4 cup of cornmeal. Half a teaspoon of baking powder, a tablespoon of sugar, and a teaspoon of salt. You know, I fought against making pie crust for the longest time because the instructions are crazy. They say something crazy like, process it until it looks like small peas. I've made a pie crust 1,000 times and I've never seen it look like small peas. It looks like wet sand to me is what I'm looking for, okay? Do about 10 pulses, about 1 second each. Okay, now we're going to add the shortening. It's a half a cup of just regular old shortening. And that has also been in the freezer. I put the butter and the shortening in the freezer at the same time. So about a half an hour it's been in the freezer, so it's nice and cold. That's the thing about crust too, you know, it's so finicky. And so you do have to, you know, you want everything cold. You could even, if you wanted to even go that far, you could freeze your flour. We're going to say about 5 tablespoons of water, and it needs to be icy cold, okay? But it could be a little bit less or it could be a little bit more. And see, and that's another thing, you know, that kept me for so long not wanting to do crust, because it's like, is it 5 tablespoons or is it not 5 tablespoons? But there's no, you know, it depends on the flour, it depends on the moisture in the air. There's too many variables. So you just have to, you know, work with it. Turn on high. Now I don't want it to turn into a dough just yet. I want it to look like it wants to turn into a dough. And see, if you grab a hold of it, it wants to turn into a dough. It's still real crumbly. It's still real crumbly. Oops. It looks real crumbly, but you can see it's holding together, right? Okay, so now our pie crust is done. But that whole has to look like peas thing, I never got it to look like peas. I was like, well, what does that even mean? Like, for one thing, it's not green. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. All right. Let's get this, put a little bit of flour on the board. I have a board here on my counter. If you have a board, feel free to use it. We're just gonna dump all of this dough out here onto this surface. See, this on the bottom did turn into dough. Now this is a double pie crust, and this is going to be the bottom and the top of our vegetable pie. And you could certainly use this, and you could use this recipe and just add chicken or add some chopped up beef, you know, cooked, you know, obviously those things need to be cooked before you put them in there. But you could use this recipe for that. Just toss in a couple of cups of cooked chicken or some cooked beef, cooked pork, whatever I wouldn't put fish in there, but you know, I'm not you. So, all right. So another thing with crust is, okay, we went to all this trouble to do this crust, right? I'm gonna actually break it up into 2 chunks, and then it has to rest. And that's another thing about it's not really resting. What it's trying to do is it's going to reabsorb, or not reabsorb, but absorb the water. The flour is going to absorb the liquid. Okay, so if you don't let it rest or absorb, it just won't be as tender because the flour is kind of still separate from if that makes sense. It's, you know, it's science. I ain't no scientist, I'm just telling you. But I want the bottom one a little bit bigger because the bottom one has to actually fit, you know, the bottom and the sides, and the top one's just going to go, you know, lay on top. So it can be just a tiny bit smaller, not a whole lot. Put this in a disc. We're going to put it in some plastic wrap, and then it's going to go in the fridge while we're making our filling. And then we're going to see you back here after I get these wrapped up and put in the fridge, and then we're going to start our filling. Okay, now we're ready for the filling part of this delicious vegetable pie. I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of butter, 2 tablespoons of oil. Oh, this isn't even on yet. As soon as that gets hot, we're going to add our vegetables. That is nice and sizzling. I'm going to add this was a good sized onion. It's a giant onion. That's probably about 2 cups chopped up. Chopped it pretty finely. Now I have, this was 2 carrots and 2 celery ribs. Let these get nice and tender. Probably going to be about 5-6 minutes. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and add the salt and pepper now too. Salt and pepper, half a teaspoon of each. We're going to let these get nice and soft, about 5 minutes, and then we'll be back. Okay, these have been going for a few minutes. They're slightly softened. I'm going to add 1 pound of sliced mushrooms. I'm going to cover it up and let that cook for another about 5 minutes until those mushrooms are nice and cooked and some of their juices have come out, so that I can make a roux. So stick with me. We'll be right back. Okay, adding in 2 cloves of garlic minced and 2 tablespoons of dried parsley. If you have fresh parsley and you prefer to use that, use it, but put it in towards the end, like right before we're done cooking it, it's going to go into the shell. Okay, but I have dried parsley all the time. I don't always have fresh parsley, so I made this with dried. But feel free to use that if you like. It's going to go another few minutes until we've cooked these down quite a bit, and we'll be back. Okay, now I've removed the lid so that some of the water, some of the liquid that's come from the mushrooms can come out. We don't want all of that, but we do want some of it to help us make our, it's a gravy, it's a roux, where we're going to add some flour and some milk and some vegetable broth, and it's going to be our gravy, that, you know, the gravy that's kind of inside the pot pie. So when we're going to do that, then I'll be right back. I would say that the liquid has reduced to about half. We do need a little bit of liquid in there because we're going to mix this flour in here. This is a 1/4 cup of flour. Stir it up. Let that cook for about a minute or 2. So you want to cook it another minute or so. 2 minutes is good. I'll let that go another 30 seconds. I just like the idea of doing that. I'll drain my potatoes. I've got 2 small potatoes here. It's about a cup of potatoes. This is 1 cup of vegetable broth and 1 cup of milk. Pour as you stir, or stir as you pour, however you prefer. Now we're going to let this come to a boil, and then we're going to let it boil for about 5 minutes so that we can get those potatoes mostly cooked. We want them mostly cooked. They are still going to cook in the oven for a bit, so they don't have to be all the way cooked, but we want them mostly cooked. So we're going to let these go, stirring occasionally for the next 5 minutes. Look, you can see it's a nice, delicious gravy. This is really good. If you like pot pie, chicken pot pie, you'll like this. Again, if you wanted to shred up some chicken and put it in here, I wouldn't be mad at you. I like using leftovers. If you had some, you know what? If you're doing this, if you're watching this at Thanksgiving time, put your leftover turkey in here. Make a turkey pot pie. You could put, I would put a cup or 2, and then you know, take away some of the vegetables. That's what I do. You do want to stir this occasionally just to keep it from sticking and burning. You know, every minute or 2, run your spoon around it. No big deal. That's already good. We're not even done. Okay, now we're ready for the next step. This is 1 cup of corn, 1 cup of peas, frozen. They're not thawed or anything, just right out of the freezer. 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Now, if you don't have apple cider vinegar, you could use a splash of wine if you want. You could use, squeeze a juice of half of a lemon in there or half of a lime. You just want a little bit of that acid in there. Okay, now this is going to sit while we prepare the crust. Looks good. Doesn't need anything, but at this point, if you wanted to add some salt or some pepper, garlic salt, anything else, you could do that. But we are good. We are good to go. We're just going to start our crust. Okay, I have a 10-inch pie plate here. Got some flour here. This is our pie crust that we made earlier. I'm going to put enough flour on it to keep it from sticking. We don't want it to stick to your surface or your rolling pin, okay? Feel free to keep putting it underneath. You want to keep it moving. Oh, the big hole right in the middle. You want to keep it moving. It'll get stuck and then you won't be able to get it off. For some reason I keep getting a crack right there in the middle, but I'm just going to stick some dough right there once we put it in the plate. I'm just going to patch it up. So now you just try and put it on your roller. This is really flaky. It's got that cornmeal in there too, so it's a lot flakier than like a regular pie dough. And we are just going to hope this works. There we go. And again, you don't want to stretch it and press it into there. You're just sort of like allowing gravity to do its work, okay? All right, now we have the bottom crust. I'm gonna try and fill in that crack. I just feel like the more you do something that you think you're not good at, the better you're gonna get at it, right? So hopefully that will work with this pie crust thing. I'm gonna work this just a little bit to get it a little more firm. You don't want to work it too much, you know, but I do want it to be stuck together when I start rolling it. Okay. All right, let's put some more flour here. Probably big enough. Now I haven't ever done this in a pie plate before. I've always done it in a casserole dish. This might not all fit in here. Oh, yeah, I think it's gonna fit in there. Just over the pie roller one more time. Okay. Cut some slits in the middle to let the air escape. If you don't do that, your pie, the crust will blow right up. Now I'm going to press the edges down with a fork. Just make it nice and sealed. And again, there's a million ways you can seal the pie. Okay, just in case any of it spills out, we're going to put it on a cookie sheet. Going to put it in the oven at 425 for the first 10-15 minutes. Then lower it to 400 for another 30 minutes. And then we will be back. We have pie. It's all done. It's cooked underneath. I actually cooked some of the crust separately and tasted it, and it's amazing. It is so flaky and so flavorful, and you do get a little bit of that cornmeal, but not, it doesn't, maybe if you didn't tell somebody, you wouldn't know it was there. Really, really good. Let's see if we can cut this. It's supposed to sit for about 10 or 15 minutes. It's been about 10 minutes. This crust is, it's amazing. Let's see how this goes. You know how pie is. There you go. It's still steamy and hot. I can't wait to try it. Oh, all the filling flew in there. All right, let's give this a go. It's really good. I like it. In fact, I love it. I want some more of it. Thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. And feel free to like and subscribe and share this video. And we will see you next time. Appreciate you.